Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so once again, welcome everyone to day 2 of our series, Africa series, day 2, Kickstart for Automation Student Developers. So as usual, hosts for today's event, the co-chapter leads for Lagos chapter of the UiPath community, a very distinguishable community. We have Christina, who is our global manager and the person who has been a mentor as far as the UiPath community is concerned across Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And joining us later will be Emmanuel Kolawole, who is my co-MVP from Nigeria. For today's session, going to spend about 90 minutes for today's session. You are encouraged to network and share your LinkedIn URL in the chat box. While the lead facilitator is taking us through today's topic and discussion and training, if you have questions, please put them in the chat. We have assisting facilitators like myself that will be attending to your questions. We shall also give time to the end of the session for a question and answer period. At the same time, we're going to have 2 quiz sessions today, and someone will be walking away with a prize voucher. And apart from that, we're going to be having 2 demo sessions, at least 2 demo sessions today. So it's going to be a walkthrough, hands-on practical approach we're going to be doing today. Now, for today's topic, our lead facilitator and speaker is Folorunso Adesanya. I told you, some of us who attended yesterday's session, that 2 years ago, he was UiPath student champion, one of UiPath students champion for that year, and the only from Nigeria. So that's why it's a wonderful thing now that we're having a session with students, and you too could become a UiPath student champion. Now, I'm going to, at this point, to hand over to Folorunso for him to continue today's session. So Folorunso, over to you, please.
Yes, thank you, Afe, for the wonderful introduction. So I'm going to share my screen now. Let me know if you can see my screen. Share.
Yes, we can see your screen. Go on, please.
Okay, great. All right, so I believe we already know what we are here for today. So we are here for UiPath Studio fundamentals, right? And we have been told that this session is going to take about 90 minutes. Sorry. Let me share again, please. Stop sharing. Just a moment, please. What's going on? Okay. Yeah. Okay, so this session is going to take about 90 minutes, and we are going to learn about UiPath Studio fundamentals, the building blocks of UiPath Studio, and everything that we would need to know to build our automation projects moving forward. So without wasting much of our time, my name is Folorunso Adesanya, and today we will be looking at variables, data types, UiPath workflow layouts, arguments, control flows, and as well as conditional statements in UiPath. So variables, I think this should be a familiar term for some of us. I mean, if for the computer science students among us, and if you are not a computer science student, I mean, it's not a problem. Okay, so variables are containers that can hold data of the same value. So variables can hold multiple data entries of the same data type. And an example of variable that we can see on the screen, an email address, right? that can actually store your personal email address. All right. And then why are variables important? Why are variables important? So in UiPath, variables helps us to, pass data from one activity to another. And then basically you cannot build any automation projects. I mean, almost impossible, right? Building an automation project will be almost impossible without using variables. So now, how do we create these variables in Studio? How do we create these variables in UiPath Studios? So there are three ways, right? And starting from my right-hand side here, we can create variables from the properties panel. And in the properties panel, you of the activity that you are currently using. So don't get confused now. Don't get confused. What is an activity? I think that question might, pop up in our minds. So an activity or activities in UiPath are the building blocks that we use in UiPath Studio to design our automation projects. All right, you can also see it as a piece of puzzle, and you need multiple activities connected to each other to create an entire puzzle represented by the workflow. Okay, so um, uh, that is how you can create the variables from the properties panel. From the designer panel, also you can create a variable from the designer panel by creating it from the expressions directly in the activity input field or the expression editor. So within the input field, you can use the shortcut Control K. So I'm going to show us how all of this works in a moment, all right? So just follow me. And then the third place is in the variables panel, right? So to create a variable in the variables panel, you use the create new variable option and fill in whatever information that you need. So before I show us how to actually do this, just let's look at this. So how can we configure our variable? How do we configure our variable? So like I mentioned earlier, using the variables panel, you can create your variable. And that is not the only thing you can do in the variables panel. You can set the data type of that variable. You can assign a default value for the variable, and as well as set the scope that the variable should be available for. So let's quickly take a look at this in UiPath Studio. So I'm going to launch my UiPath Studio now. So let me stop sharing and share again while I launch my UiPath Studio. Okay, so this is my UiPath Studio. So I'm going to create a process. So for the sake of this class, all right. So let's create a process and call it UiPath Studio Fundamentals. I mean, your process name should carry, or your process name should carry or should describe the purpose of the project, of what you are trying to automate. So for instance, you want to automate a result checking process, all right? So that should be the name of your process, result checker or something like that. I mean, something descriptive, and you can also choose, this is optional, you can also choose to describe this in brief words. All right. So I'll create my process. So the tutorial guide pop-up that is showing, I am choosing to ignore it, and because I don't want it to come up again when I create a new process. But for you, if you come across it, you can allow it to guide you through the old studio, which is basically what we are doing now anyways. So this is how, let me collapse this. Yes, this is how your UiPath Studio will be when you create a new project or a new process. All right, and the main entry point for your project is the main.xaml file. All right, the entry point is always the main.xaml file, which is the default file open for me right now. Now, we were talking about variable. So I mentioned that you can create variable from the properties panel, of the activity. And also I mentioned that an activity or activities in UiPath are the building blocks of our automation projects. All right, so where do we and how can we access the activities in UiPath Studio? So in your UiPath Studio, right, when you open or create a new project, look for this guy. The pane is called activities. It is labeled activities. All right, and you can see that there are a lot of them available for any kind of automation project that you want to do. Okay, and so back to variable again. I want to display my email address. All right, I want to display my email address. Let's just do that very quickly. So we need to create a variable that would house whatever it is we want to display, right? So let's create the activity from the variable from our properties panel. Now, when you drag in your activity into this into the canvas, right? When you click on it on your right hand side here, you should see the properties pane. And if you can't find it, maybe it's probably collapsed, right? Look for this gear or tool icon that has properties label. So click on it, it's going to open, and you can dock it to this side here for you to always see the properties of each activity that you are using. If you have any question, do well to drop them in the chat as we move on. Okay, so moving on, this is the properties pane for the assign activity. So I want to assign a value to a variable. All right, I want to set a value for a variable. Now, how do I do that? I mentioned that you can use Ctrl+K, which is basically a shortcut, all right? And then, type in your variable name, right? Strike enter. So that variable has been created for us. And then we can set our value, say me at uipath.com. Okay, so I don't know if you observe, there was an error sign or a warning icon on top of this main sequence canvas or activity initially, right? But that has gone because we have set a value for our variable. So that is one way to configure declare your variable or to create your variable. Now, the other way is to do it directly from the designer panel itself. So let me remove this variable. I'm going to come back here.
I follow, sure.
Hi, Ibrahim.
Somebody's asking you to like,
Yeah.
yeah, repeat the variable part, right, Samuel? How you created the variable on the properties pane. If you can just
Okay.
take that
So
there. Yeah, thank you.
let's thank you for that, Ibrahim. So let's go over that quickly. I'm going to remove the activity. All right. So I mentioned that there are three ways by which you can create your variables from the properties pane. So let me show us how to do that again. So I dragged in my activity from the activities pane. All right. There are other ways to do that also, but I will show us as we move on in the subsequent demo. So this is the activity, right? You click on it, it is currently highlighted. So if I click out, can you see that the gray border is gone? But when you click on it, there's a gray border on it. So that is to tell you that that activity is currently highlighted. Now, what you how you can set or create the variable from the properties pane of this activity is to look out for this pane. Let me highlight, yes, this pane, properties pane in your studio, in your projects. All right, so it is possible for you not to see it like this. So it is possible for you to, not have it shown for you here. So you can find it right on this right-hand side. Look for is this a spanner icon or something? Yeah, with properties label, and click on it. Okay, when you click on it, you can, dock it to be active here on the sidebar for you. So the properties pane is currently shown for me here. And what this properties pane actually does is it gives us all the properties of the currently highlighted activity. And now assign activity is currently highlighted in my workflow. So these are the properties, right? The display name, which I can change, say set email, okay? And best practice anyways is to always change your activity's name to be descriptive to whatever it is you are doing there. Now, that is one of the properties. The other property we have here is set value. And to what variable are you setting that value for? So let's come to the variable. Now, this is where I created the variable in the properties pane. I used Control K. Control K will give you this set var input field, and then you can type your activity, your variable. Right? When you're done typing, strike enter, and then that variable will be created for you. So as you can see, the variable is showing here as email address. All right, so that is one way. Let me just complete the step by setting the value that I mentioned, say me at uipath.com. So I hope it is clear on how to use the properties pane to create your variable for the participants. Okay, so moving on, the other way is from the designer panel. The designer panel is what we are looking at right now. So this area here is the designer panel, right? This is where you cook and you set everything, you arrange your activities together to form a workflow. All right. Now, let me delete that variable. and create it for us again here. So my activity is back to the way it was initially, right? Now, in the save to input box, which is basically asking us for, to enter the variable, right? So you can also use Control K to set your variable. So I have the variable name copied in my clipboard, so I just pasted it, and then strike enter. It's the same step as what we did in the properties pane, exactly the same step. All right, and then just set the value at uipath.com. Okay, so I believe this is clear how to set a variable in the designer panel. Please, if you have questions, please drop them in the chat. Our facilitators would attend to them. Okay, so the third place is the variables panel. All right, the variables panel. So this is basically where let me collapse it again and bring it up back. I can't drag that. Okay, so if you look down here, please follow my cursor. You can see variables, you can see arguments, you can see imports, and some other icons, right? To magnify and to magnify your designer panel and all of that. So we have business with the variables pane currently, or panel currently, right? So just click on it for the panel to come up for you. And you can see that when I clicked on it, it is asking me to, select an activity to set variable scope. So meaning that you need to highlight at least one activity. You need to highlight an activity that you want to configure your variable for. Okay, so again, I have highlighted the assigned activity. Look at the gray border around it, stating that it is highlighted. I will click on the variables panel, and you can see that the currently set variable here is also showing in this place in the variables panel, and it is even showing in a more descriptive way, right? Telling me the variable name, the variable type, the scope, and then a default value, which is currently empty. Okay, so let's remove this, and you can do, apart from just configuring your variable, you can also remove, delete your variables from here by just using your delete button on your keyboard. So let's set a variable, the email address variable again, email address. All right, the data type is string. I will set the data type to be string. There are a lot of other data types. We'll see, get there. So the data type for this email address is string, which is basically stating that a string information is going to be stored in that variable. And then the scope, how do I want to define its availability? So I want it to be available in the whole of this main sequence. That is what this scope is basically telling us. And do I want to set a default value for it? I have already assigned a value here, but again, I can set a default value from here. All right. So that is how to configure your to create and configure your variables. All right. So back to the presentation. Before I move on, are there any questions? Okay, so I think we can continue.
I can't see any questions in the chat, so I think we can continue.
All right, thank you, Ibrahim. So that explains how to configure and create our variables. So let's look at some common facts about variables in UiPath Studio. So again, the type of value that a variable holds is determined by the data type of the variable of that variable. Remember our email address variable, the data type was set to string because we are going to, we wanted to house or hold a string information for us, which is our email address, right? And then the other fact is based on the data type, right? Some variables can hold a single value while some can hold multiple values. All right. So example of data types that can hold single values includes the string variable, integer variable, your double variable, and the likes. The others that can hold multiple values are the array, the list, the data table, and so on. Now, the value of a variable can change through external inputs, through data manipulation or passing value from one activity to another. Okay, so now let's look at data type. So the data types that we have in UiPath, I mentioned some of them earlier on, right? But just to refresh our memories, what are data types? All right, so data types are categories of data that tells the computer what kind of information is being processed. Remember our email address variable again. So I'm going to be referring to this for some time. Now, our variable name email address, whose data type is string, is holding a text or a string variable, right, which is our email address. And how do we even know that this value is a string? If you remember very well, I stored the email address between quotes, right? Just like what you can see on my screen right now. My address at uipath.com is being housed in double quotes, 2 double quotes. Okay, so in UiPath, there are some exceptions, all right? So the data types in UiPath, some of them are borrowed from VB.NET. Okay, the string variable, the int32 variable, the data type, the boolean, the arrays, the list, and data tables. And another interesting fact that you should know that UiPath has a proprietary variable type called the generic data type. This data type can store any kind of data, including text, numbers, dates, arrays, and so on. Okay. So moving on, still on data types, we have the string, which I mentioned earlier now on that we can use it to store text. We have the numeric data types. There are different types of them. We have the int32. We have the int64, which is basically your long integer. We have the double data type. We have the boolean. And we also have the data table, date and time, to specify specific time coordinates, your data table, which can hold or store big pieces of information and act as a database for, or a simple, let me say, table with rows and column. All right, just from the word data table. So let's look at the proprietary data type that UiPath has made available for us, the generic data type. So this data type is particular to UiPath, and again, it can store any kind of data. UiPath Studio has an automatic conversion mechanism of generic value variables and arguments, which can guide towards the desired outcome, by carefully defining their expression. So let's look at this expression on my screen. And also we are going to look at it in the UiPath Studio and see for ourselves. So note that the first element in your expression for a generic value data type is used as a guide for what operation the studio will perform. So looking at what we have here, our facilitators, please check the charts if we have questions. So we have int 32 variable, right? That is storing 1, 2, 3, plus a string variable that is storing 1, 2, 3 also. Okay. And if we output this expression, it is going to give us 246. If we output this expression in this manner, it is going to give us 246. All right. So the second expression is a string variable that houses 1, 2, 3, and another one that takes another integer variable that takes 1, 2, 3 also. So if you arrange it like this, you have your output in this manner. So let's look at it in UiPath Studio. Okay, so my studio is back up. All right. Quick one. Let's declare 3 generic value data type variables. Okay, so let's call the first one int. Okay, we want it to be generic value data type. So I will find, let me just go back to show us what I just did. So in the variable type column, right, in your variables panel, if you don't have the desired data type here, you can browse for more types. So click on browse for types and search. If you know, of course, you should know the data type that you want to use. So search for the type name. All right, so mine is generic value. Oh, sorry, generic value. Yeah, so this is it here under the UiPath.core class. So library rather. So click on select the generic value data type and click on OK. All right, so that variable is already created. Now let's add an additional one, call it string, and we would declare it to be generic value as well. And the last one, let's call it output. Okay, output, or yeah, output generic, or say generic outputs. So you need to also be careful with your variable name conventions, naming conventions. So you can use Pascal case, you can use camel case, and what is the other one that we have? Is this snake case? But the advised one is Pascal case. All right, so let me change the data type of this, my variable, to generic value. So I will drag this up for us to see. Let me collapse this so this view is broader. Yeah, so as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3 generic value variable types here. Okay, so let's test our expression. Let's test it out. So we want to we want the integer generic variable to hold 1, 2, 3. All right. Set int. So I'm going to copy and paste this, and then I'm going to change the name. Set string. Okay, so and we want this to, so this should be str. We want it to be in quotes. Remember, your string values should always be quoted. Okay, so set str, set int, and then let us see the output of this expression. Okay, so we might, okay, let's just use the right line. We don't need another one. So not to confuse us, let me just drag one more for the generic outputs. Okay, so our generic value outputs, we want this expression to be, so in that, in the sample, we have int first and with the plus sign, and then our string next, okay? And then we save the expression. Now let us output our generic value. Okay, so any questions? So output, the right line will print out the outcome of this expression for us. So quickly, let me run this run file. Okay, so what do we have? We have 246. We have 246 because this is simply saying that the robot added the value of our int variable with the value of the string variable. Okay, now let us change the arrangement of our expression and see what will happen. String first, the plus symbol, and our int next. Then we save. So let us run. All right. So how do you test your workflow? How do you run your workflow? So we have these tabs here for us. We have the home tab, all right, which is basically what we would always see when we launch our UiPath Studio. We have the design tab or panel that have so many things where you can, you can create a new sequence, a new flowchart, and what have you can save, you can export, and then you can run a workflow file. This is a workflow file, all right? XAML file is a workflow file. You can debug, the entire project. You can run the entire project, or you can just, from the play button here, you can debug this file, the workflow file. All right. So in our case, initially we just, we clicked on the run file. So the file was executed and we have the output. So now let me use the debug file. Drag this away, please. Yeah. Let me use the debug file option. Okay. All right. So can somebody just, you can type it in the chat. What was done here? What is your understanding of what was done here? Just briefly, a few seconds. Anyone? Great, Samuel. Concatenation was done here. Fantastic. So that is exactly what has happened with what we've done. We had the string variable first. All right. So and then the plus sign, which is basically a concatenation symbol. So the understanding of the process at this point is, hey, just concatenate whatever value you have in the int variable with what you have in the string variable. So that is fantastic from Samuel and Omoni. Okay, so moving on, the uses of our generic data type data type. So what are some of the business scenarios in which you can use the generic value DT data type? So in a case whereby data is extracted from a UI field and forwarded to another workflow without processing. Okay. you have two versions of the same Excel file, and you want to you want to compare them column by column, or in a case whereby the columns are different in terms of data type, right? So the only relevant thing you care about is the entries that have changed. So these are some of the business scenarios where you can use the generic data type. And remember, it stores any kind of data. Okay, so any questions so far before we move on? Okay, so it appears that there are no questions. All right, great. So workflows. So what are workflows, or what is a workflow in UiPath Studio? I think you must have heard me, I've probably mentioned it like twice some moments ago. All right, so that is because workflow is, so it basically represents a small piece of automation that you can take and reuse in your project. So it is basically your canvas, all right? The place where you design and work with all the UiPath Studio activities. And what it does is it defines the flow of your automation. And that is why we have the name workflow. So if you look at this very well, let me come to my projects pane. All right, so the project pane briefly points to everything about your projects. Okay, everything about these current projects or automation projects that you are working on, everything such as the dependencies, the packages. So these are the packages. So let me collapse them. The entities, the templates, and then the files, the XAML files that you will create or that you have created so far. So for our own automation in UiPath Studio Fundamental class, we have just one workflow file, which is the XAML main.xaml file. And right in this workflow, we have, series of activities, all right, that has defined or that has helped us with, something prior to now. So let's go back to why workflows are important. So why are workflows important? With workflow, it is the fastest and most reliable, as well as the useful way of automating a process, all right? And then with workflow, you can break down your project into smaller components, and it is advised that you actually do so. So let's say you have a scenario whereby you have to build an automation project for cost form registration, okay? For cost, or let me just say cost registration. There are a lot of tasks involved in that. So you need to find a way to collect the student's registration ID. You need to find a way to validate it. So those series of tasks, you can break them down into smaller workflows, right? Build them in smaller workflows and then combine everything together later on to form a full business automation solution. So doing that will also give you room for independent testing of components. All right. It also gives you room for team collaboration and, like I said, component reuse. Okay. So what are the UiPath workflows layouts that we have? We have sequences, we have flowcharts, we have state machines, global exception handler. So UiPath has given us all these things to work with to make automation easy for us. Okay, so we don't have to, worry ourselves about building these things anymore. We need to know how to, combine them to form our automation solution. So sequences, just like the name implies, it's the steps of a process. In sequences, steps of a process follow one another in a clear pattern, and activities in sequences are easier to read and maintain. So they are highly recommended for simple and linear workflows. Flowcharts, well, some of us might be familiar with flowcharts. So in flowcharts, individual steps are a bit harder to read and edit, but the overall flow is much clearer. And you use flowcharts for situations that need complex decisions and branching. All right. So for the sake of this class, we are going to focus more on these two. Then we have the state machines and we have the global exception handler. So quickly in UiPath Studio, let us see what a sequence looks like and what a flowchart looks like. All right. So this is what a sequence looks like. So let me collapse these activities. All right. So this is a sequence. So let's create an empty sequence. Come on, say test sequence. So I went to the design tab, right? I clicked on new and I selected sequence for me to have my sequence created for me. So this is what your sequence will look like when you create it from, afresh, all right? And you can start adding activities, and there are different ways by which you can do that by using the activities panel, just like I have been doing so far. You can also use the command palettes, all right, and you can use the add activity icon that is here, this plus icon. So let's add with the plus icon. Okay, so you can see that it's brought out something for me to find the activity that I want to use. And when I type the name and I clicked on it, then the activity will be dropped for me here. Yeah, it is that easy. Then the other way is to use the command palette. So you can do that by using on your keyboard Control-Shift-P. Control-Shift-P will give you a search box also to search for your activity. Control-Shift-P, right line. Oh, Control-P rather. Is it Control-P? Okay, let's just stay with the two options for now. The activities pane and the add the plus icon in our design panel here. Okay, so moving on quickly. We have limited time. Okay, so we've talked about sequences, flowcharts, and variables. So let's look at arguments. What is an argument? All right, so in UiPath, argument helps us to pass data between workflows. Basically, that is what it does for us. It helps us to pass, data between workflows. So we have workflow A that needs to take records to workflow B, and want to take records from workflow B to workflow A. That is what an argument is meant for. It helps us to do that easily. So they are also very similar to variables, all right? The stored data, dynamically, they have the same data types. They have the same methods and properties. And the only difference between an argument and a variable is that it has an additional property, which is called the direction, all right? Your argument direction can be either in, out, or in and out. All right, so this tells the robot where the information stored is supposed to go to. So we'll look at this in our demo session coming up very soon. So look at this diagram on my screen. We have workflow 1, all right, and workflow 2. So this is just to tell us more about an argument in UiPath Studio, in Studio. All right, so workflow 1 takes data into workflow 2. All right, look at this arrow. All right, and workflow 2 takes data out of it and takes it to workflow 1. And then the in and out, you know, it is bi-directional, right? It takes it from workflow 1 to 2 and from 2 to 1. All right. What you have to do is just invoke your workflow. We would also see this in action in our demo very soon. So how do we create an argument? How do we create an argument? So after this, we are going to have our quiz. So let us get ready for that. You can create your arguments from expressions, all right, and directly in an activity input field, just the same way we did for the variable in that assign activity, if you remember very well. And instead of Control K, an argument uses Control M as a shortcut. So if you want to create an argument, you can use the shortcut Control M for in arguments, or you can use Control Shift M for out arguments. And then from the properties panel, you know, just like we saw in the previous demo, all right? And then from the arguments panel. Okay, so just to quickly show us how that looks, what that looks like. So this is yeah, we have the variables panel here, right? So beside it, we have the arguments panel. It's not far-fetched, okay? And for each of your activities, you can create an argument by using the shortcuts that I've mentioned. Or if you don't want to use the shortcut, you know, either in the properties pane or in the design panel, you can just create your arguments here and, you know, pass it to your activity. So how do you do that? Let us see this, for example, say in email address. All right, so why do I have to put in? I mean, why do you have to like prefix in for this, my name? Because I want it to be readable. I mean, I want it to be easier for another developer that comes into this workflow to see that, okay, this argument is actually taking something into the workflow. All right. I mean, you will still set the direction, but regardless, it is the best practice that you prefix the direction tag with your name. All right. So in email address, the direction is in, you know, just like variable, you also have data type for arguments. And you can do the same thing here using your Control M, set your arguments. Come here, use your Control M, set your arguments. Just like that. Now, it is time for our quiz. Let's, so yeah, the same way we did it yesterday is also how we are going to do it today. So you can scan the QR.
Yeah, let's hand over to Christina so that
Oh,
she
yeah.
can.
I'm here.
Right, thank you. Okay, Christina, yeah, thank you.
Sharing.
Okay, so all right.
The quiz to present mode, and now I will let them join for the information on screen. But Afe, if you can maybe put also the link in the chat for those who are joining from computers, because maybe some are joining from mobile, but some may join through their laptops. And let's keep a bit also the QR on screen. Let me get it for you. Okay, I will share screen now. And if you're joining from mobile, just scan the QR code on screen and you'll be straight into the quiz room. If you are joining from your computer, laptop, you can join through the link that was shared in the chat. It's a bit easier to join from mobile, but both ways work, no worries. And the quiz will go on same as yesterday. Afe, shall we play all questions in a row or free at the end? Afe?
Three and three
questions
would be better.
Okay,
so yes,
we'll,
3 questions. So the first
so
3
we'll
questions.
move on with the first 3 questions.
Yes, please.
Let's see how many we have in the quiz room now. 22 players ready out of 42 in the session, minus 5 of us. Let's see if we can get to 30 players. Okay, I see no one else is joining. I think we can start if no one else is joining. Are there people who are still trying to join and did not manage?
We have 27 now.
Okay. Oh, they jumped in and jumped off. 26, 20. Okay. Stick with us, remain in the quiz room. We're just waiting for others to join. Okay, I think we can start at this point. Tell me in the chat if you're struggling to join. Okay, 27. Back to our top 28. Perfect. Let's start the quiz then. Everybody ready? 28, where did you go? Okay. So let's see. Let's start with the first question. And remember, guys, answer fast, yes, to get more points. What is the shortcut key used to create variables? Okay, you have 4 options. Time is running out. So this is incredible. Everyone got it right. This means the presentation worked like magic. Let's see the leaderboard. After the first question. Okay, Oshin is in the leader position now. And let's see how that goes for the next questions. Question 2. Yeah, everybody get ready and be ready to answer fast again. How to pass data between workflows. You have 4 very serious options. So you can use FedEx, UPS, Argument, or Postman. What will you use to pass the data between your workflows? I think Afe was a bit too kind when setting this question. But still, there are people who would use UPS. But that's actually maybe a very justifiable error here with UPS. Arguments, of course, is the main choice and the one that was presented. Thank you for answering that. And let's go to the next question. Let's see first the leaderboard, how we stay after the second one. Okay, so we had a bit of a change. Nolo is now leading. And let's see with the third question in this quiz at least. But we will have 3 more questions at the end, and then we will know the true winner. Okay, get ready, answer fast. Which one of the following is a data type particular to UiPath and can store any kind of data, including text, numbers, dates, and arrays? And you have 4 options here again: generic value, container, text, arguments. Remember, this is a data type that can contain and store any type of data. Yeah. And if you want to get it right, maybe you can think of the Excel sheet. Or yeah, okay, generic value, of course. So that is the correct answer. Let's see the final leaderboard for this after the third question. But remember, this has all the chances to change until the end. Okay. As you see, it changed even more. Gautam is now leading. So I'll see you back in maybe a quarter of an hour.
All right.
But
Thank
remain
you.
in the quiz room.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's go back to yeah. please confirm if you can see my screen.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Yes.
Okay, so let's continue. So let's look at control flows in UiPath in Studio. So control flow, so these are basically the order in which your activities are to be executed. All right, so we also have control flow statements that determine the decision made during the execution of a workflow. So we have a couple of them. We have the if, we have the else if. So let me grab this here. Yes, we have the if, we have the else if, we have the switch statements as well, all right? And the while statements, the for each statements. So what are the importance, or what is the importance of control flow in Studio? The control flow takes care of the order in which the actions are performed in automation. The activities like the if else, the if activity, the for each activity enables us to define rules and automate conditional statements within our projects. The loops also helps us to run a part of the automation a specific number of times until a certain condition is met, or maybe indefinitely. All right. So the three types of control statements that we have the conditional statements, right? For the computer science students, you might be very much familiar with this. The if, the else if, the switch statements. The loops, we have while, the do while, and the for each. And then we have the parallel activity that basically executes child activities asynchronously in parallel. So, but for the sake of this presentation, we are going to be focusing more on the first two. So, the if statements, all right? So this takes contains a statement with a condition and then two sets of instructions, the then block and the else blocks, all right, as outcome. So in the then block, the set of actions to be executed when the condition is true, and in the else block, you can have the actions to be executed when the condition is false. Very much similar to the else if activity. So it comes with ability to add multiple conditions to the else branch. All right. So just like the screenshots you can see here, you can have multiple conditions to your else branch. All right. So let's see how this works, how the if statement works in Studio. So we are going to do something quickly. I think I should share us the problem statement. So we want to design a workflow, all right, that will tell us if a user has passed their exams or not. Okay, so that is what we want to do. I have a test sequence here. Okay, so I'm just going to ignore that. I'm going to create a new sequence and call it the if statements. All right. So the sequence has been created for me, and part of what I need to do is to grab my if activity. All right, grab my if activity and drop it here in the designer panel. All right. Now, ignore the errors and the warning sign. That is because we don't have a variable, anything for this if statement yet. So this is what the if activity looks like. What do we want to do again? We want to tell a user if he or she passed their exam. So to start with, let's create a variable called, okay, let's use an argument instead. All right, so let's use an argument called in grade. So we can use this to demonstrate how argument works. All right, so we want our argument to be int 32 data type. Okay. So we want to check that the in grade is equal to is greater than or equal to 60. Okay. So you can see that the errors, the warning sign is gone. So what should happen if this is true? Okay, so if this is true, we want to display a message. So let's use our message box here. Find your message box in the activities panel, and in quotes, type the message. You can use any message that you want. Congratulations, you passed. Okay. Now what should happen if this condition is false? So let's also use a message box activity. So you see, I dragged the activity to the else block. All right. And in quotes, I have my message say, sorry, you need to put in more efforts. Now, my activity is my if activity, my if statement is done, but I just want to, just make this a bit more clean. Let's change the name or make the name more descriptive. So if grade is greater than 60. Okay, so for somebody that comes here, when you see this, you have you have an idea of what is being done in that particular activity. All right, so that is for that. Now, how do we, where does the value for this in grade, where does it comes from? Okay, where does it come from? So quick one, this would explain to us. So I'm just going to let's delete. In your end, you can just disable it using Control D. You can disable those activities using Control D, but I deleted those ones. So we want to invoke our if statements workflow. All right. So to invoke a workflow, you can drag it. So go to your project pane. Look at this. The same place where you can find your activities pane. There is a project pane there. So find it and open it. You will see the list of files that you have created. So drag the if statement workflow into the designer panel and import the arguments. All right. So importing the arguments okay, I've imported the arguments and I need to, set the variable or whatever records that needs to go into that workflow. But I don't want to add code a value. All right. I want the user to, input something and then we'll take it to that workflow. So let's use the input dialog quickly. The input dialog activities helps us to, collect information from users. Okay, so input grade. What's our input title? Say in quotes, grade, enter label. So let's just say enter grade for your input label. What is the input type? Yes, we want it to be a text box. And then the valued enter, all right, we want it to go to a variable called grade. All right, and be sure to change the data type of that variable in the variables pane. So by default, it should be string. Yeah. So change it to int 32. Remember, our argument is set to be int 32. All right. So here we are going to bind our argument with the variable. So that is what I have just done. I have created the variable already. The argument is already in place. So whatever value the user enters into this variable is going to enter our argument, which will subsequently get displayed in the workflow, in the if statements workflow. Okay, so let us test this. If you are building with me, can you just type in the chats, just type if statements in the chats. Let's see how many of us are together. Okay, well done, Ebele. So the process is running. Okay, so the input dialog is asking me to enter a grade. So I'm going to enter, let's just enter 60 and see what would happen. So the condition enter the then block, okay? And that's is it. So that is basically what an if statement does, all right? And I have also covered the concept of arguments and invoking a workflow, all right? So please be sure to follow this properly. Okay, thank you very much, Austin and Versha. Moving on, we want to check how the else if statement works. So I'm just going to use the same workflow. All right, the same workflow. So I open the if statement workflow, and I would disable. Come on, I would disable the if statements by using Control D. All right, so that is the same concept as commenting out a piece of code. So let's find the else if block in this place. Yeah, so look at it. I have the else if activity. All right, and it is pretty much like what we had earlier on. So the same condition is going to come here. If grade is greater than 60, what should happen? Where's our message box? We would display, let's just display simple word, congrats. All right. We'll add another condition. All right. So let's add, yes, to do that, let me delete this. To do that, click on this plus icon to add an else if. So I clicked on that and it gave me the block. So another condition. So if in grade is say greater than 70, okay, we want to say, so I just copied the message box and oh no. Okay, let me just drag it here instead. So my message box for if the grade is greater than 70, I just want to say super. All right. The same concept, basically the same concepts. Then what's happening here? If the grade is greater than 70.
Your else section, you've not put anything in there, have you?
Oh, right. Okay. So let me also add a message box to that. Let's see. Let's just say sorry for this particular case. The error is not gone. Let me try to delete that. Is my argument still here? Yes, it is. Okay, let me rephrase this.
Can you hover on there? Well, let's see.
Yeah, if in grade is greater than 70.
What does the error say?
Condition is required. We have a condition for this already.
Yeah,
We
I need to
we
like redo the workflow because sometimes it just
it
happens like
behaves
that.
like that. Oh,
Yeah.
right. Okay, so if you have the same issue, so basically without this blocker, this is how to build your to make use of the else if statement activity in Studio.
Let's see if this for lunch. Can you remove the conditions on both instances? Then then type them again, let's say. Then do the operation as well. So type the first.
Let me expand this to get the expressions pane. if in grade is greater than 60, I save that.
Then the second condition.
Okay, so let me delete the second condition, deleted. I will add it again and bring this up. So if in grade is greater than 70, and I will save, click on save. It still does not go away. I think that is my studio issue, I guess.
Check the other else.
Yeah, that's okay. So
there's nothing in the body of the else if, that's right. Yeah.
But I'm not sure that's why I added something initially. So let's say super for this and save. Okay. Still there. So I think this is my studio.
All of the warning symbol at the top of the start go up, not the red one, the yellow one.
Yeah, it's because a child activity has an issue.
So maybe the best thing is to
Yes.
just do what you have there and do it again. See.
Okay. So let's try that again. Let's remove the O else block and try it again. So again, drag the else if block into this place. We have our arguments already in place. The in grade. All right.
Well,
so the condition.
okay.
Yes, go ahead.
We didn't invoke it in the main this thing. Could that be the reason?
Oh, no. We are still even building the workflow itself. So it is when we go out of this workflow that will, yes. Thank you. So our message box, let's put it in and say congrats. All right, say congrats. Congrats. Okay, then when I add an else block, let me see. I think it's at this point that's this issue. Okay, hold on. Oh, it's not that. Okay, so when I add an else block, I would say if this is greater than 70, does it still come up? It still does.
So the thing is, Folonsho, shouldn't you be testing the condition of greater than 70 first before you are testing greater than 60?
Okay, so let's do that then. Congrats.
So take a condition of 70 first.
Yeah, so let's move this up. Say 70, and then let's put 60 here, 60. Okay.
Then your messages there.
Yeah, my messages are there.
Of your else for the else.
Say sorry. Let's just put sorry. Okay, this is cleared, and this is still there.
Falansha, I think it should be
Yeah.
in an if activity.
In what?
In an if activity. That else if.
Oh, well, they are two separate activities, but let's say that. Let's say that. This is so basically for those that joined us yesterday and you downloaded the latest version of Studio, this is 2024.10.0. So if you are using a lower version, maybe you won't have the issue, just maybe, I'm not sure. So let's see let's say this should be greater than 80. Okay. Yeah, still the same thing. Let me drag a message box first. So we are just going to move on if it doesn't work. But Yeah, that is gone, but this still stays there. Oh, it's gone. Okay. So in grade is greater than 60. So we have 80, 60, 70. 80, 70, 60. Oh, it's gone. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Joseph. So we were looking at the else if activity, right? And apparently, well, so what I did to solve the problem as prescribed by our facilitator is to drag the activity into the else block of my if activity. All right, and then the condition still remains the same. So for the first if, we have greater than 80. All right, and then if it is greater than 80, we have our message box there. Then same thing for this, for this other one. So our workflow is already invoked, and everything we do is still going to remain the same. What will change is the behavior when we pass based on the value that we pass to that workflow. So I'm just going to test this, and we'll move on to the next. So let us use 70 this time around. That is inside the else block. Yeah, so it says congrats. So that is how to handle that. All right, the next conditional control statement that we would look at is the switch statement. So basically, the switch statement evaluates once, and unlike the if statement that evaluates each time based on the condition in your else blocks. Okay, and it is useful when we need at least 3 potential sources of actions in Studio. All right, so quickly we would look at the while the loop statements. So starting with the while loop statements or activity evaluates the condition before the execution of the statement. So look at these screenshots on the screen. All right, so we have the condition here, and we have the body that depicts the statement. So the while loop, it is possible for the while loop to have 0 executions. And also we have the do while. The do while statements, unlike the while loop, evaluates the condition after the statement has been executed. Okay, so this is a quite different scenario than the while loop. And the other one is the for each activity. All right, so this performs an activity or a series of activities on each element of an input collection. So it is very useful in data processing, and you want to basically look through an array of items, a list of items. For each is the go-to activity in Studio. How do we exit a loop in Studio? The while loop and the do while loops will exit upon checking that the condition is no longer true. And then the for each will exit when it has finished processing every item in the collection. Okay, we have the break activity in Studio that enables you to exit the current loop activity at a choosing point, and then you continue the workflow with the activity that follows it. We have the continue activity that allows you to skip the remaining steps in the current iteration. Okay, so we are going to look at brief exercise for the do while and for each, and then we'll have our quiz. So back to Studio. So back to Studio, I'm going to create a sequence for, let's call this while statement. And in our What statement creates? Yes, in our in this sequence, in our exercise, we want to display or print the even numbers between 1 to 10, 1 and 10. So pretty much, let's get to it. The first thing that we want to do is we want to so let me use the variables pane to declare the variables that we would need. So we will need our counter variable, okay, which is going to be int 32. And I think that is all that we should need for this purpose. So counter, let's set our counter to 0. All right. Please always remember to rename your activities. But for the sake of our time, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go straight to what we want to demo. So the do while activity will be dragged here. Okay, so we want to put our condition to say if as long as the counter is less than or equal to 10, we want to want to perform the statement, want to execute the statement. And then what is that statement? Remember, we said we want to print even numbers. So we want to check if our counter mode 2 is equal to 0. All right, so that is what we want to check in this scenario. So if it is, we just want to, let's use the right line activity.
Sorry for lunch. What does mode 2 do for us? What does that mode, what does it do for us?
Okay, so yeah, thank you for that, Afe. So what do I call it in studio now?
So
This function, right, or this method, right? What this expression basically what it does for us is it gives us, it helps us check the remainder of of our variables. So what we are saying here basically is, as long as the remainder of this of a division operation is equal to 0. Okay, so say for instance, our counter is currently holding 2, all right, and you divide that 2 by 2. If the remainder is equal to 0, all right, it is going to print our statement. So modulus or mode rather is, gives us the remainder of a division operation.
thank you.
Yeah, so we want to print something. We want to print the so want to print our counter. Remember, it is an integer variable, so we need to convert it to string for us to be able to print it. If you don't do that, the error icon that is coming up here will just stay there for you. So you need to convert your integer to string basically. So what we have done here is we have set our counter variable to be 0, and in the condition of our do while statement or activity, we have the condition that says as long as the counter is less than or equal to 10, we want it to execute the body, and in the body we have an if activity that checks the remainder of our counter. If it is 0, we want to print the value of that counter. So briefly, let's just run this particular workflow. Then we move on to the for each statements and we can have our quiz.
Falonsho, it appears your presentation is blocking the results, so we can't see.
Oh, yeah. Yes. So something is wrong with our implementation. Remember, we have our counter set, but we did not increment the counter. Okay, so we want to okay, stop. We need to increment our counter by 1 for the, yeah. So to do that, I just need to drag in the assigned activity again and simply just say counter, call the counter variable here. And sorry, my system is lagging a bit. So we would say counter equals to counter plus 1. Okay, so that should fix. For our initial run, we had zeros printed out. I mean, so let's do this again. So I'll go to Studio and the execution. Yeah, so we have the even numbers printed out between 1 to 10 printed out for us in the output pane. So in case you can't find your output pane open for you, please look downward here. You have output, breakpoints, and bookmarks. Just before this blue line, click on output, you will see it's there. Okay, so that is for the do while statements or activity. Onto the for each statement now. The for each statements, we are going to basically loop through a folder and display the file names. So I don't know why my studio is behaving this way, so just ignore that. Sequence for each statements, create. All right. So there are 2 ways to, because of the use case that we want to demo, you can do this in multiple ways using the for each file in folder, the for each file in folder activity. Okay, so this is pretty straightforward, simply because we want to look through files in a folder, but I'm not going to use this. However, I will still show you how to, use this in case you want to do something similar. So drag in the activity, select the folder that you have your files in. So mine is located here. So in the invoices folder. All right. And all you have to do is just print out the name. All right. So if you check the properties pane of this activity, let's look at it very well. We have the inputs section, which takes filter, the in folder, asking us to include subdirectories, the order, and all of that. So that is the property of this guy. Now, how do we now print out the name? As you can see here, we have for each current file. So this current file is holding a piece of file in that folder. So I will say print current file dot name. So this will give us the name of the file. Okay, but this is for file operation, file and folder operation. So for other scenarios where you need to use the for each statement, so we have the actual for each statements or activity in Studio. So still in your activities panel, drag it in to your designer panel, and then you do everything that you have to do. So for this case, our scenario, we will need to browse through the files first. Okay, so I'm going to declare a variable called let's say invoices. Okay, and I would grab, let me go to that folder. So this is the folder here. Let me maximize this, grab this. So I'll copy the path. All right, minimize this. In the expression body, I'm going to use, UiPath is built on top of the .NET framework. So we have some of the libraries available for us to use. All right, so I'm going to use the directory info class to access the files in that folder. So this class takes the path as a string, of course. So you need to quote that and paste your folder path, and then at the end of the closing brackets, use .get files. Okay, so directory info, your path, and then .get files. So this should give us, so this is throwing error because the variable type of our invoices is a string type. Okay, so this should be an array of file info. So let's get that. Okay, so how do I know which one to pick? Okay, so when you search for your type, for your, what's it called now, for your data type, please look inward and look out for the type under this private.core lib what's it called now, reference. Then select what you want from there, and just click on OK, and the error on my assign activity is gone. Please always remember to rename your activities. I'm not doing that because of our time. All right, so what's the next thing I want to do? I want to use the for each activity to display the names of the files in my invoices folder. So I'm going to say for each, so look at the properties pane. So we have something there by default. So I'm just going to say current file, just like we have it in that other guy. So current file, and then this should be a file info type. Okay. And in the invoices variable, so just give it some time, that should go away. Yeah, it's gone. All right, now what do we want to do? We want to print out the names. It's pretty much similar to what we did there, but remember that is strictly for file. So I'm going to access the name, and that is it. So you can use this for anything. The actual for each activity, you can use it for anything to look through list of collections, list of items in your collections. So I think there's no crime in running the two together, so I'm just going to run this whole sequence. So we'll have the names printed for us twice. Okay, our time is fast spent, I think. Okay, so yeah,
blocking.
Sorry for that. Yeah. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 files here. Okay. The first one is, oh, they're all carrying. Okay, so the first one ends with 3211321178. So we should have 10 total outputs here. So 11321178. All right. Another starting 11321178. So the first set is being done by the for each file in folder activity. The second one was done by our for each activity. So basically that is how to use for each in Studio. Please, if you have any questions, do well to drop them, and it is time for our quiz. I'm going to close this and we'll go to the second set of our quiz. Over to you, Christina.
Okay, wait a bit. Let's share a bit more the QR code again on screen in case anybody jumped off. So I will just leave this a bit on screen so you can join the quiz again. This is where we left off. And we can go to the next question once you're all in the quiz room. Let's wait maybe for 10 more seconds. If you don't manage with the QR code, remember you also have the links in the chat a bit above. So if you scroll through the chat, you often just shared again the link to the quiz. And let's see how many we have in the room. 22. Okay, 21. Anybody else joining? See again the QR code. Okay, we're up to 25. 26. I think we had 28 last time.
Yeah, we had 28 the last time.
But we can move on with 25. Maybe some of them dropped off.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start. Answer fast to get more points, remember. So what instructions are available in if activity? This was something you just watched, I think, a bit of a time ago. So you have 4 options here. Then else, maybe not. Do it, don't do it. Why not? There are some obvious no answers, but I'm hoping you will choose the right one. And it's incredible, everybody was right. Yes, the correct answer is then else. Thank you. Let's see the leaderboard because I know you all want to see it. And we have 2 more questions coming up, remember. So stay tuned. The leaderboard changes as you've seen, because it's also based on the speed you answer, not only the correct answer. Okay, Nolo is still the one leading. Let's go to the next question. Question 5, 26 players in the room, 27. Let's go. Which loop checks the expression at the beginning before executing the body? Do while if, for each. So the loop that checks the expression at the beginning. Okay, so most of you got it right from the session. And then a bit of you have some doubts still, but it's okay. We have the session recorded, no worries. This will fix. Let's go to the leaderboard. And I think we have a change. Okay, Oshin is back in the game in pole position. And now we're going to the very last question. And this question will determine the leader today, the winner of the UiPath voucher. And also maybe the end of the fun. But I'm hoping this quiz is also fun, not just... So as I also said in the chat, while learning, you don't have right and wrong answers. Which loop can be used to perform a series of actions on every item in a collection? Boomerang, circle, for each, or roundabout? Okay, so you guys really learned well today. For each is the correct answer. And now the final leaderboard with our winner today. Okay, Oshin is our winner today. Congratulations, Oshin. Or Oshine, I don't know. What is the correct? Please DM me now your email address in the chat for the voucher. And thank you all for joining the quiz and engaging with us today and learning well. And now I will switch back to Afe.
Thank you very much, Christina. And for everyone, we apologize for taking your time. But so quickly, so that because we have another session tomorrow. But in the meantime, I want to post these things on our chat. So if you want to, we encourage you to continue your learning by going to UiPath Academy. So I'm posting that now on the chat. Go to UiPath Academy, go to the learning plans page, and enroll for the Automation Developer Associate Training course. And then you can take the variables, constants, and arguments in studio lesson, as well as the control flow in studio lesson. Now, if at any point in time in the course of your study during this series, from now and next week, you have any challenges, we have a forum page that you're already aware of. I'm going to put the link again. Drop your questions so that we can unblock you. Please be ready for tomorrow's session, Introduction to UI Automation. And we have Ibrahim will be the person facilitating that for us. So thank you very much for your time. We look forward to having you tomorrow.
So this is the forum page that Afe just shared, and here you have the description of the program, the links, and you will have updates from me after each session. You will see here all the resources, and you have for each session an assignment which is written in the event body. Yeah, so for example, the assignment in Academy today, you have it here: variable constants and arguments, control flow in Studio. And these are all part of the associate learning path. So go do the assignment. You will also find the same assignment and the registration link for next session in tomorrow's email and on the forum. And please also, yes, go and register to our third session. Make sure you're registered for tomorrow's session, which is this one. And I will share the link now in the chat so that you all make sure to register for tomorrow's session so you can access the event. Thank you all. Please copy paste the forum link and the session link so you can register, and see you back tomorrow.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.